Hello, my name is Dick Lepage. Let me introduce myself. First, you should know that I'm a very old man, probably the oldest person you've ever met. I hope to live long enough to finish this course. I'm a fellow who taught at Boston University for 26 years. I was a professor there in social sciences and education, and I also taught at other institutions. I taught at the community college level in Massachusetts, working to introduce curriculum reforms as well as to internationalize the outlook of the faculty and how they taught their courses. I worked there for about 20 years too. Most of my background is in social sciences. I studied at Union College in Schenectady, New York, and then I got a master's degree from the State University in New York, and then I did my doctoral studies down at Columbia University and also at the University of London. My background is in social sciences, which means that I've mostly studied sociology. I'm a specialist in education, studying education in countries all around the globe. And in addition, I try to work other social sciences into my perspective on sociology, employing the tools of anthropology whenever possible, of political science, economics, social psychology, as much as I possibly can. I'll introduce now the first chapter, and we'll introduce all the chapters. But before I do that, I want to indicate that I am extremely grateful to my son, David Rapaz, who has helped me with the organization of this course. He's very good with the computer and has helped me to organize the course and to program it so that it could be employed online. Let me introduce the course now. This first chapter is the chapter in sociology. It's the perspective, theory, and method. What's a perspective? The perspective is how you approach looking at the world around us, at all of our social institutions, whether they be schools or government or churches or business, and how you look at them. And there are different ways of looking at them. In your text, you will find that there are different approaches and different theories. And one of those approaches is a structural functional approach, which is substantially conservative in how it looks at things. It is not a critical approach. It simply says this is the way things are. Then there's another approach called a social conflict approach, and that approach employs a critical approach, and that means that we look at our institutions, at how they have been, how they are now, and how they might look in the future. Those are all big picture approaches. There is a smaller picture approach, which is called a symbolic interaction approach, and that's used for studying how people interact together, how they relate to each other in small groups and larger groups, but it's called symbolic interaction. There are different ways to do sociology. Some of them are called positivist, some interpretive, some critical sociology, and we will study those as well. In addition, there is a method of looking at how people interact, how they behave, how they live, how they work, and those approaches require research. So how do you do research with people? When you do research using a scientific method, the approaches can be laboratory oriented, and you can work with materials. For example, in physics, you can use metals and wood and gases and liquids. In chemistry, you use all sorts of substances, and in biology as well, and you can do all sorts of things with those. But with people, you can't cook them, you can't heat them up, you can't freeze them, you can't do all the things you do in the physical sciences, and nor should we want to. You have to be careful in dealing with people. So there are some ethical restrictions on how you do research. And those restrictions are very important. because people have to be involved in how they're studied as much as possible and know what's happening to them when you're looking at them. And the methods of research, as a consequence, can be things like just looking at people, observing people. They can involve observation in which you participate in working with people, called participant observation. There are things that you can do as well in talking to people. You can interview them. You can do surveys. Many of you have probably been approached in the mall by people doing research for marketing, different commodities and products. So you can ask people questions, and that's what we do in sociology. But you can do some experimentation. For example, the commuter lane in Massachusetts, in the Southeast Expressway, once allowed 3 people to be in a car. They discovered experimentally that that did not work. It just took too long to assemble 3 people in the morning if you're going to work. You can never be absolutely certain that somebody's going to be ready to go. Good Lord, they may have to have a second cup of coffee or go to the bathroom or do something. So the experiment didn't work initially, so they made an adjustment. They reduced it to two people in the car in the express lane. That's a form of social experimentation, and we do it all the time. Airlines do it with their schedules. Airlines do it with how they seat people. Not too comfortably nowadays, but maybe it'll improve in the future. So there's plenty of experimentation in business, in commerce, in medicine, with people to see how things work. So the experimental method can work, and it is the most powerful method employed in the sciences. And you can do things with people, but you just have to be careful that what you're doing is proper, legitimate, ethical, kind, and thoughtful and purposeful. So I welcome you to sociology and look forward to working with you throughout the semester.